Yeah.
I want to welcome everybody that's joining us this evening. This evening's event is the Sandwich Generation. It's done through National Committee of Jewish Education, Operation Survival, made possible from a grant from Councilwoman Crystal Hudson, and together with Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. This is going to be an informative evening on two different areas. One is going to tell you how to maximize your benefits, and the other one, we have a wonderful speaker on she will present on the dynamics of what happens in the household. So what is the Sandwich Generation? It's adults, we as adults that have living parents that are either with us in our home, or we give them some emotional support or monetary support. And at the same time, we have our lives that we have to work, and how do we balance it, and how do we juggle, and how do we maintain a normal life to what we want. And we have to do it in a way that promotes after some kind of symmetry with the family. We have to be flexible. We're going to learn tonight how to some of the tools that will help us in doing these things. And we will learn how to go ahead and manage the dynamics in the family. Our first speaker is Eli Knobloch. He is the owner of Maximum Care Solutions and a consultant for the JCC of Borough Park. And Ellie, I would really like you to give us everything you can on how to make our lives easier for our parents, and and give us instructions on how to get the funding or the help that we deserve. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Seema. First of all, I just want to make sure that you can see me, or I'm still only on voice.
No, we see you.
Perfect. Okay. So first of all, let me thank Rabbi Berman. I really appreciate what you do for the community, all the videos and everybody involved in Operation Survival. Thank you, and keep up the good work. Tonight's presentation will be mostly focused on the changes in New York for community Medicaid. Before we start, let me just give you a few quick notes. This presentation is for New York residents only. Anybody that lives in any other state, each state has its own laws for Medicaid. So again, everything I'm gonna be speaking about in this presentation, it's only for New York residents. And I really wanna strongly advise that if you're thinking about moving your parents to other states, please look into it, because we're very used to New York. They're very generous with the benefits they provide, and it's much easier than other states to get the benefits, home care and other benefits. Another thing, New York, it's divided in two categories. There's people under 65 is one category. And for those that need, people under 65 that need Medicaid, you apply through, it's called Exchange. Some people know it as Obamacare, the Marketplace. And I'm not going to go into that. The only thing I would say that if you're under 65, Medicaid does not look at your assets. You can have $1 million in the bank, own 10 properties. You're still eligible for Medicaid. The only financial test there is to see if you're eligible is your income. But what we're going to talk about tonight is for people that are over 65 or are disabled. They're in a different category, and they apply through your local Medicaid office. One more thing I want to go into before we talk about community Medicaid, since most of my clients have Medicare. So what is Medicare? Medicare is a federal program. It works in all states. Once you have it, it works in every state. It's basically a health insurance, and anybody that's over 65 is eligible as long as you worked, I think it's 10 years or 40 quarters minimum wage. You're eligible for Medicare. Yeah, there's no financial test, so it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, you're over 65 and you work those hours, you're eligible for Medicare. Now, the problem with Medicare is it's a great insurance program, but it does not cover long-term care. Neither home care long-term does it cover, and it also doesn't cover when a person needs long-term in a facility. So that brings us to Medicaid, because if somebody needs a long-term home care or nursing home, it gets very expensive to private pay. Just to give you an example, average nursing home average nursing home rate in New York for a month is around $15,000 to $20,000. So it's extremely expensive to pay private, and since Medicare doesn't cover it, the other option is doing Medicaid. So in Medicaid, there's a couple of different levels to Medicaid. What we're going to talk about is community Medicaid with long-term care, which covers all Medicaid benefits, including long-term care, which is home care. Now, I know I mentioned this before. It's Medicaid is a state level, so it only works for residents of New York State. So in order to qualify for Medicaid, there's an asset test and there's an income test. Let's start with assets. Assets is anything from money you have in the bank, CDs, savings, IRAs, stock accounts, bonds, life insurance with cash value. Term life insurance is not an asset, only the ones with whole life that have a cash value. And the limit for a single person that, let's say they only have a bank account, is they can have up to $30,000, and for a couple, $40,000. There are two assets that are exempt. One is a qualified retirement account. Qualified retirement accounts are IRAs, 403Bs, 401Ks. Those are exempt assets, so they're not counted towards the 30,000 asset limit. So if you have a 401K with 150,000 in it, it's not counted as assets. You could keep it on your name, and in addition to that, you could keep another 30,000 in the bank account. Another exempt asset is your primary residence. As long as the value is around 1 million, a little over 1 million, it's an exempt asset. If it's over that, you're not eligible. Now, if you have a primary residence, even though I just mentioned that it's an exempt asset, you should still speak to an attorney to protect that asset, because you are eligible, but after 120, when the person that has Medicaid passes away, and if they are married, when both of them pass away, Medicaid could put a lien and recover everything they laid out for the past who knows how many years. I've had many cases where people came to me, they actually didn't do the Medicaid by me, but they came to me and they said, oh, my father just passed away, and the government is coming after his house. They say I owe them, they put a lien, I owe them $300,000. I thought a primary residence is exempt. And I tell them that, yes, it was exempt when they applied, but if they didn't protect it, now Medicaid can recover everything they laid out. Let me just look at a few notes to make sure I didn't leave out anything about assets. Okay, so right now, community Medicaid, I mentioned that the asset limit is $30,000 for a single person, $40,000 as for a couple. And the benefit of New York is this no look back period. So if let's say your father owns now 2 properties and has $500,000 in the bank, you could transfer that and the following month apply for Medicaid, because New York State has no look back period currently for home care Medicaid, community Medicaid with long-term care. And this is the change that they want to put into effect, where they want to put in something called a 2.5-year look back period, which basically means that even though you took everything off your name, you went to attorney and transferred everything off your name, and now you're left with only $30,000, Medicaid will look back and say, one second. A year ago, you put $100,000 in this trust, and you put 2 properties in the trust. Because you did that within 2.5 years, you're not eligible to apply. How the penalty works is for approximately, it's not exactly, for every $14,000 that you transferred within the 2.5 years, Medicaid will tell you 1 month, we're not going to pay you home care, and then the following month you're again eligible. So if you transferred approximately, let's say a year ago, you gave away to your daughter $60,000, Medicaid will say you're not eligible for the next 5 months, and then you're eligible again for Medicaid. So that's the change that Medicaid wants to put into effect. It was supposed to go into effect in October 2020. However, due to COVID, they kept on pushing it off. And as of now, it seems it's not going to go into effect before 2024. Now, just one quick thing about another level, and then we'll move on to income. So I just mentioned that for community Medicaid, there's no look-back period. They want to put in a 2.5-year look-back period, but this, for somebody that needs a nursing home long-term, not just rehab, because many people go into the hospital, go into rehab for 20 days up to 100 days, that's covered under Medicare. But after 100 days, you have to apply for nursing home Medicaid. Nursing home Medicaid is a different level than community. And the big difference when it comes to eligibility is this currently already in place since 2006, a 5-year look-back period. That means if you gave away 4 years ago, $200,000, and now you're going into nursing home, Medicaid will say for the first 2 years, because you transferred $200,000, first 2.5 years, we're not paying your nursing home stay. So I guess that's the summary of assets and the look-back period for community Medicaid. Before we move on to income, Seema, is there any questions, or you want me to add anything?
Yes, you said about that house, that after he died, they say that they wanted the house. How could that person have protected his house, his asset, from his kids before he passed away? Did he have to? Right.
Right. Very good question. Yes. So if you do own a house or you do have stocks, before you come to me, I'll advise you to go speak to elder care attorney, and they can protect it. I'm not an elder care attorney, so I can't give you the strategy they use. I know with most clients, they put your assets into something called an irrevocable trust. And once they do it, it's protected. The only thing I'm going to add is when you're looking for attorney, make sure they specialize in elder care. My experience is as long as the elder care attorney, you usually are, you want to go to good elder care attorney, but as long as the elder care attorney, it's fine. Where I've seen my clients get messed up is where they use some attorney that doesn't specialize. They say, oh, I do everything and I can help you. And then it gets messed up. They have to specialize in elder care. I would also say, try to use a good elder care attorney. You're doing it once in your life. Even if there are a few $1,000s more, rather go to an attorney that you have good references and they charge a little bit more, because it's not a simple process. When you put your assets into trust, it's not just putting it into, you plan for what happens while you're alive and what should happen after you pass. So yeah, definitely use a good elder care attorney, even if they're a little more on the expensive side.
Okay, so let's continue on with assets. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So I think we're done with assets. I mentioned that right now.
Income.
Yeah,
you
income.
wanted...
Yes. Yeah. So let's move on to income. Let me just. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to income. So income. First of all, what is income? Income could be unearned income, which means Social Security, a pension, dividends from stocks, distributions from IRA. Those are unearned income. And then there's earned income, which means that you're still working. So this is very important for people that are over 65 and still working. Just know that your money that you earn for Medicaid purposes is only counted half. So if you, let's say, earn $2,000 a month, For Medicaid purposes, they only count $1,000. For unearned income, like your Social Security, they count the full amount. Now, the limits for a single person, how much you're allowed to earn to be eligible, is $1,697. And for a couple, it's $2,688. Now, many people are over those limits. So let's take an example. Let's say somebody, a single person, gets from Social Security approximately $2,500. The Medicaid limit, let's round it off, is $1,700. If we would apply for that person, Medicaid would say you're eligible. It's not like they say, oh, you're over the income limit, you're not eligible. They say you're eligible, but you're over the limit by approximately $800, the difference between $2,500, what they earn, and $1,700. And that's called a surplus, your monthly surplus. Simple, before I go into any programs, Medicaid will say, okay, we'll give you all the Medicaid benefits as long as you pay your surplus to us. So if you pay us every month $800, we'll give you all Medicaid benefits. And again, they're going to give you thousands of dollars worth of home care. So it's great. You pay $800 and you get home care. However, there is a better option. There's something called a pooled income trust. So what is a pooled income trust? The reason they allowed a pooled income trust, let me back up a minute, is clients said, okay, my income is $2,500, but my rent is $2,000 and my groceries, utilities, how am I going to give you $800 when I won't be able to pay my rent? And that's why Medicaid allowed this pooled income trust program. What is the pooled income trust? It's basically an established trust, and we'll call it like a bank account, a big bank account that is run by a nonprofit. And everyone that signs up gets a small sub account, like a bank account. Now, this person that is over the limit 800, I would open them a sub account in this Medicaid approved trust, Medicaid approved bank. And every month when they get their $2,500 from Social Security, instead of paying Medicaid the $800 that they're over the limit, we would take that $800 and they would transfer it over to their sub account in the pool trust. So basically they have $1,700 left over, the income stayed in their account. They can do whatever they want with it, give gifts, charity, it doesn't matter. The $800 that went into this sub account of the pool trust, their account in the pool trust, what happens with that money is they can use it towards any of their bills. Bills can be rent, mortgage, utilities, groceries, cable, vacations, burial plot, car gas, anything as long as it's for their benefit. The only thing they cannot use it for is gifts and charity. But here's how it works. When you want to pay, let's say, your rent bill, you would have to give to the trust company your rent bill or lease, and they would pay directly to the landlord the rent amount. Same with a utility bill. If you have a Edison bill and you want them to pay out of the $800 that you gave them the bill, you would give them every month, either email them or upload it. They have like accounts. They try to simplify it since they're dealing with the senior population. You upload your bill to the account or you email them and they take from the $800, they pay that bill. If there's leftover money, let's say you use it for groceries. So you put in $800 and you spend $600 for groceries. And now there's $200 left over that you didn't use or you forgot to use. That money rolls over from month to month. It's your money whenever you want. If it accumulated a little, you can say, okay, now I want to buy a new piece of furniture, and you give them the bill and they pay it. The only time you lose that money is after the person passes away. Medicaid gets to keep that money, and therefore I advise all my clients the first bills they should pay is the money from the pool trust. Usually people don't let it accumulate and they have bills enough to use for the $800, so it doesn't happen. But I've had cases where the surplus is very high, where a person earns like $5,000-6,000 and they only have bills of $2,000, and it keeps on accumulating. Eventually they pass away and Medicaid gets to keep the money. It's still worth it because home care paying private is 10,000, say, hey, you might lose a little because you can't use up the money of the trust, but you're gaining much more by getting the Medicaid benefits. One more thing about the pool trust, they have fees. The regular fee, they have a one-time startup fee and an annual fee, but the main fee is the monthly fee, and it's usually 10% of the surplus. So in our example, if somebody's $800 over the limit, when they deposit the money, the trust company will take off $80, and the rest of it is for them to spend towards any of the bills. The trust companies try to make it, even like I mentioned before, more convenient. So they'll give you options of automatic deposits, automatic payments. They even give you back a debit card. So let's say they'll say, okay, we'll put back on a prepaid debit card $500 of the $800 you put in, and you can use it for any of the groceries or any other bills. So they do really try to make it convenient for the people in their trust. So that's basically income. One more thing I want to throw out there is something called spousal refusal. I mentioned before that that the limits for an assets and income for a single person and for a couple, there is such a thing, spousal refusal. What that means is when only one spouse needs home care and not the other one, the spouse that doesn't need it can say, don't look at my income and assets, just look at my husband. So let me give you an example. Couple, the husband needs Medicaid because he needs home care. The wife is fine, still working. In some cases, I'll tell them, let's do spousal refusal. They'll only look at the husband's assets, only look at the husband's income. And if the husband's income is under the limit, they won't need a pool trust, as opposed if they would apply together, their income would be higher than the Medicaid limit, they'll need a pool trust. Now, with spousal refusal, some people throw out the term lightly. Oh yeah, do spousal refusal, they'll only count your spouse's income. Be careful, because Medicaid could come back after the spouse that does spousal refusal and say, why are you refusing to contribute towards your wife's care? Let me see what you have in income, assets, and I'll decide if we want to come after you, sue you, and we want you to contribute towards what we laid out this year towards their care. So when you're doing spousal refusal, make sure you consult with somebody that's knowledgeable and confirms that that's a strategy you want to use. So before we move on to closing, Seema or Rabbi Berman, do you have any questions on income?
I've done the pool trust for my mother. I've done other things. You explained it beautifully. I wish you would have explained it before I did it, because it would have been easier for me to do it. But you did a very good job of explaining. We have a couple more minutes before our next speaker. So I'm going to let you wrap it up, Ellie. You've done great.
I see some people have their hands raised. I just want to say you could ask questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. They're both on the bottom of the Zoom video. We're not going to be taking voice questions, but please ask if you have a question.
Okay, and I just want to add, with the new look back period, new look back rule, the 2.5 year look back rule that they want to put into effect, it's still very, we don't know what the penalty amount is. We know by a nursing home, if you transit 14,000, they're going to give you a month penalty. We also know that the penalty period starts as soon as you apply and you're in a nursing home and you want Medicaid coverage. With community Medicaid, we don't know, but I can tell you that Rabbi Berman is doing a lot of research and he's really working for the community. I know personally that he's looking into and trying as soon as he gets more information. I'm sure I'll update everyone. And so thank you, Rabbi Berman, again for that. So in closing, I just want to give a few quick pointers for people that are over 65. First of all, if you're over 65, everyone should have a power of attorney and a healthcare proxy. Power of attorney is basically where you authorize a family member, a spouse, a son, that they can represent you, and it's mostly for financial, like banking, benefits, Medicaid, all these financial aspects. And a healthcare proxy is more for health. So if somebody's in the hospital and they can't make the decision, if you show your healthcare proxy, it gives you authorization to make the decisions for them. Another thing for people over 65, please, I see this often, especially in our community, where they come to me, they say, oh, I have this house, my son put his house in my name so I could take a mortgage, or my grandson put his 20,000 into my account. It's not good, because when we apply for Medicaid, suddenly somebody's in a nursing home and they tell me, oh, this is not my house, it's my son's, and he put it in my name. I can't explain that to Medicaid. Medicaid is not going to accept it. And I've seen cases where people have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they co-signed for someone or had kept their relatives' money in their account. And definitely if you're over 65 and you own a house, or you have stocks and bonds, please consult with the attorney. Don't wait till you need the benefits. If you wait, it's sometimes too late. And again, I've seen people lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're supposed to go to attorney when you're healthy, not when you need it. When you need it, it's sometimes too late, and you end up losing all the money that you saved away.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Okay, Ellie, could you share your contact information for people to ask you a question later on, or to give them
Yes.
some advice?
Yes, so I'm the CEO of my company. It's called Maximum Care Solutions. We're a Medicaid consulting company. You can reach us at 718-704-0044. My extension is 204. Again, my number is 718-704-0044, extension 201. Thank you again, Seema, Rabbi Berman, for all the work you do for the community.
Thank you, Ellie Knobloch. Thank you very much. You were very informative, and I hope that everybody gained from what you told us. Okay, we will continue. Thank you very much for your time and for your expertise. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, we're going to move on to the program now, to our next speaker, Dr. Faye Walkenfeld. Faye earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Brooklyn College and her Ph.D. in developmental psychology from CUNY Graduate Center, where her research focused on children's development of memory and language. She has been teaching at Touro University for over 25 years and is currently chair of the Department of Behavioral Science and associate professor of psychology within the School of Health Sciences at Touro University. Dr. Walkenfeld is a licensed psychologist in New York State, where she maintains a private practice. Dr. Walkenfeld, let's hear about juggling, caregiving, and parenting. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Seema, and thank you to really to all the hosts. I think this is really an important topic, and as I was doing some research to see what in our community we have in videos, I found a lot on kibbud av v'em, which is important, and on how to take care of parents. But the idea of juggling both is something that has not been discussed that much. So I'm happy to be part of the conversation. Thank you for inviting me. So juggling, caregiving, and parenting, navigating the challenges of the sandwich generation. There's a lot to discuss. We can only touch some of it. So I'm going to give you my outline here. We're going to define the problem, a bit of the prevalence. We'll discuss caregiving to parents. We'll talk a little bit about parenting children and grandchildren, perspective and attitude and how that affects things, and a little bit about outside help. And then I think the panel will be open. Seema will ask me some questions. We'll see where this goes. So what is the sandwich generation? The term was coined in 1981 by Dorothy Miller and Elaine Brody. It was really to at first describe usually women who are raising at least one child under 18 years old, and also taking care of at least one parent or parent-in-law over age 65. Today, with people living much longer, Baruch Hashem, we have more than a sandwich generation. Many are calling it a triple-decker generation, a 7-layer generation, whatever you want to call it. But we're dealing with people who are in their 50s, 60s, who are taking care of elderly parents in their 80s, 90s, and who are also helping their adult children who are taking care of their own children. In addition, we have spouses in the 50s, 60s, you're also dealing with spouses who are getting older and having issues. And so there's a lot that we're dealing with, in addition to the fact that many women are working And this is not just about women now, because men have taken on a lot of caretaking roles as well. So you can call it the working sandwich squeeze if you want. It's been called many different things. And we're all trying to do everything well. And we'll talk about that. Just so you have an understanding about where we are in terms of sandwich generation in the world, in America. So the Pew 2022 statistics, which has data that was gathered in 2021, says that about a quarter of adults in the United States are sandwiched between an aging parent and a minor child or an adult child who they're helping financially. This is for the United States. We can only assume that the percentage is greater in the frum community because we mostly have families and we are trying to build and maintain our families. So what is caregiving to parents? What are our priorities? First and foremost, what's involved in kibbutz avim? It is one of our most important mitzvahs. It's the 5th in Aseres HaDibros. We're supposed to respect and revere our parents. This has been said to be really a sign of hakaras hatov for our parents, for giving us life, not even necessarily for how they treated us, but just for giving us life. We owe them hakaras hatov. It's a reflection of how we behave with Hashem. It's said that the way that we behave with our parents is a reflection of how we behave with Hashem, which is why it's so important to teach children how to have kibbutz avim, because that also gives them a sense of how they should be behaving with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is rewarded with long life. And if our children see how we treat our parents, that is how they will treat us. So caregiving to our parents is an extreme priority. It is a very important and very valued in our communities. So how do we deal with kibbutz avim, though, when it conflicts with the tafkid of raising children? So strictly speaking, men are mechuyev in kibbutz avim all their lives, whether married or not, and women are mechuyev until they're married, at which point their primary obligation is to their husband and raising their children. Nevertheless, it is brought down that a compromise should be found where they can still take care of their parents. But if push comes to shove, really, their nuclear family is of prime importance. So as parents age, there are different things that happen, right? So we may need help they need help managing their own health, managing their finances, some home supplies. Do they need groceries? Do they need home repairs? Sometimes they need help with hygiene. These are just a few examples. There are many more. One of the biggest issues that we really don't know how to deal with so easily, because it's not concrete, is how to deal with giving up their independence. Emotionally, that's a very difficult thing. It's important to make sure that the help we give them is done with dignity. It's done so that they don't feel we're trying to take away their independence, but rather to support them as needed. This transition is a process. It takes time. We can't rush it. It requires patience. It requires flexibility. And a lot of emotional strength for both the aging parent and for the adult children. And I can't stress that enough, because a lot of times we see things, we want to help them, we want to take charge, and that's really not our place. The idea is to get them to a point where they can agree and they can see that what we're trying to do is really help them and not take away their independence. When that can't be done appropriately, it's time to ask a shaila. Parenting priorities. It's important to remember one of the main purposes of our being. So yes, we're supposed to take care of our parents, but we're also here to raise the next generation of Shomer Torah mitzvahs. Bearing that in mind, how can I set the best example and be mechanech my children on how a Shomer Torah mitzvahs behaves? Well, one thing, we don't abandon our sick and elderly parents. We respect them and we care for them. We don't abandon our spouses in the service of caring for our parents. We may split tasks and we may be separated for a time, but we must try to maintain a shared goal and a healthy relationship. We also do not abandon our children. We love them, we nurture them, and we hear them out because they're dealing with this as well, and we care for them. And the same is true for grandchildren. As parents, we are the only parents our children have. It is up to us to ensure that they are physically and emotionally healthy. That requires us to be good role models in how we treat our own parents. It also requires us to be present for our children, for their physical and emotional needs, as well as for their milestones. By being present for our children, we bring honor to our parents in raising a healthy family. Our parents want our children to be physically and emotionally healthy. It's a reflection on them as well. What about work? I mentioned that a lot of us are working these days. So for caretakers who work outside the home, work is often an important outlet for a caretaker. Don't give it up lightly, because it's one place where you can shine without feeling other responsibilities being torn between in family. Work is also often needed to help alleviate financial strain. It is possible to let people at work know what you're dealing with. And I think that's something I've seen it in the literature, which I was surprised, but it's in the literature that people really need to let your coworkers know what you're dealing with to some degree. You might be able to work from home, or you might be able to change your position to one that's less demanding, or have other accommodations so that you can continue working while you're doing the caretaking and parenting. Marriage and shalom bayis. So shalom bayis, as I mentioned before, can be affected if a couple is not on the same page about caring for a parent or a parent-in-law. This needs to be worked out together, and sometimes in consultation with a Rav or a therapist, depending on what the concerns are. Also, if some siblings live further away and cannot chip in as much, that might cause issues for the ones who live close by and do all the caretaking. Siblings who live further need to acknowledge that they are not what they are not doing, and they need to show appreciation to the couple that is doing, or to the other children who are doing more. They should also try to make some time to come and help. And I guess we can talk about that more, but I think it's important to recognize that that can affect shalom bayis. So tensions. When caregiving conflicts with parenting, and either or both conflict with work, how should we prioritize? So here's an example that was given to me. My teenage son used to go every morning to put on tefillin for his grandfather. He no longer wants to go, and my husband can't go because of his work schedule. How can I explain to my son that he must do his part in taking care of Zadie? I'm not going to answer this yet, but much of our ability to balance effectively has to do with seeing the big picture, our attitude, and our perspective. Should children help in caretaking of elders? Well, I think part of it is how you look at family. I think too, and taught in a way that will encourage them to want to help. They should not be forced, because that will only breed discontent. Actually, this was pointed out to me. The Lubavitch Rebbe in Igros Kodesh wrote, I'm going to read the English translation, but the giving of the Torah was on condition that the largest portion of human deeds be done by his own choice. As the pasuk says, and you shall choose life, you shall choose life, and not by commands and orders. Meaning, what the Rebbe is saying here is that we really should be coming to doing mitzvahs by choice, not that we should feel that it was imposed on us. And I think that's something to keep in mind also when we're dealing with our children and asking them to do things. In addition, mental health was important to the Rebbe. He says, and this is a translation, "It is clearly not my wish to scare you, chas v'shalom. However, I must emphasize again that in all times and certainty and certainly in our time, we must be especially careful of all that pertains to the nerves of the younger generation, the boys and the girls. This is obvious when we contemplate what is happening amongst our youth in health issues in general, and specifically in the areas pertaining to the nerves, meaning to mental health." So the Rebbe was aware of mental health issues and of people feeling forced to do things. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we're dealing with our children. So looking at the family, I said we want to see how do we view a family? A family, it should be seen as a dynamic system. A person is not an island. Families function as a system where generations interact and support each other in different ways. There's something called an intergenerational contract. Someone did some research in Israel where she talked about how in Israel it's a given, and I believe that's probably true for most of our from families, where grandparents are going to help their older children, their adult children, with finances and with cooking and with babysitting, and younger children those middle sandwich people, adult children, expect their children to chip in as well in helping with the grandparents. And there's a dynamic system that goes beyond generations. It's intertwined. If we keep the generations separate, we hinder that process of transmission of values, of knowledge, of a sense of identity. It's important for children to know where they come from. If they have a relationship with their grandparents will tell them where they came from, what the families were like, and that gives them a sense of a place in the stream of Yiddishkeit, of who we are. If everyone understands that they are important in the system, it becomes natural to want to help each other in times of need. Speak to your children. Attitude toward children needs to be that they are part of the family system and should have a connection with other generations. If they feel connected to the other members of the familial generations, they will be more accepting toward parents' divided attention. So going back to that child who doesn't want to go anymore to help his grandfather put on tefillin. I think we need to hear him, hear his frustration. He did it very well for a while. Was he rewarded for it? Meaning not rewarded in that he has to get a prize every time, but was it made a big deal that people appreciate what he was doing? Did he feel appreciated? In addition, after a while, it is difficult. It's important for the parents to recognize that it is difficult for him to go every single morning. Maybe he should only go some days, and maybe they can hire another bacher or someone else in the family can go other days. I think we need to look at really what the other issues are and what's holding him back. But he needs to be heard so that he doesn't just resent what he's doing. And it is important to also recognize he's being asked to step in because his father has to go to work. So his father's not giving up on that, but he's being asked to give up on that. Again, I'm not saying he shouldn't be, but I think we need to look at the picture and acknowledge what his conflict is. And then once you recognize it, that's half the battle. So what are some key points? Respect everyone's place in the dynamic. Respect your parents' need for dignity. Respect your child's need to be heard and seen. Allow children to be involved in caregiving and vice versa. And allow siblings to be a part of the picture as much as they can. What about very young children? So here's another example. How do I explain to my 3-year-old that I cannot be present at bedtime because I need to go to my parents to give the medication? It's hard for young children to understand what you're doing there and why you can't be there. I think if you take them with you occasionally, then they see what you're doing. And then you can refer to that other times and say, remember when we went, so I have to go again. And this time, you're tired. So maybe you stay home and I will go and I'll come back later. But that a 3-year-old can understand some of that. And I think that it's important for them to be a part of the process. It's okay for them to sometimes go to sleep a little later, because missing 1 or 2 bedtimes is not a big deal in the scheme of things. What's really important is that they understand where you're going, what you're doing, what the responsibilities are, not that you're out partying and they don't know where you are. So let's discuss some specific stressors and some solutions. And I did take this from this website. It's adapted from there. So personal time. It's difficult to find time for self while caretaking and parenting at the same time. It's actually difficult even if you're doing only one of those. But let's say, certainly with the 2 together, that is difficult. So one solution is be organized, plan regular family meetings to talk about upcoming commitments, delegate tasks to other siblings, to other people in the family, and get everyone on the same page. This can be done, today we don't have to do it with everyone in the same room. You can do it through a Zoom phone call. I have to say we sometimes do that in my family. You can do it through a WhatsApp group where people update people on, so I took this parent to the doctor and here's what we found and here's what we need next time and here's the next appointment. And so who can take that one? These are all ways, and certainly with today's technology makes it easier to do. And I think it's really important to do to kind of keep everyone on the same page. And it doesn't take that much time given in the way that we can communicate today. Ask for help from other family members, friends, and neighbors. That will help you. And help is not just, can you come visit, but really help is also, can you take some time so that I can go out and take care of other things with my children? Or I can just do self-care. Family discord. So issues can be triggering and even bring up old childhood disputes among siblings, or even between parents and children. So some issues that might cause disagreements are parental care decisions, which doctors to go to, which hospital to go to, which you can fill in the blanks, I'm sure, if you're dealing with this. Where parents will live. So are they going to live independently and we're going to keep getting aides? Are we going to hire our own aides? Do we have the money for that? Are they going to go into a home? At what point? Financial responsibilities. So be honest and direct about your feelings. Calmly let your other family members know that their help is both wanted and needed. Also be realistic about what help others can provide. Clarify your own expectations of others and ensure you understand their expectations of you. But I have to say, it's also important to really understand that you may be resentful a little bit about what your siblings are not doing. And you have to sometimes understand that you don't always know what's going on in your siblings' homes. And you shouldn't always know everything that's going on in your siblings' homes, but sometimes we have to be respectful of their boundaries and what they can and cannot do. And even though it seems unfair to us, we have to realize that we don't really know everything that's going on in everyone else's home. Try to see things from each other's point of view, respect differing opinions, and compromise where you can. If the situation is particularly tense, arrange for a conversation with the mediator. Use a therapist, a social worker, a mental health counselor, or other trusted third party who can make sure that everyone is heard and respected. Dealing with complex emotions.
For me, we don't hear you.
Yeah.
you with you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Dealing with complex emotions. So the role reversal between caretaker and aging parent brings up complex emotions. There's something called anticipatory grief. So people may have some anxiety, some dread, some sadness if a parent is close to passing or they're anticipating that. There's pain in seeing a parent's loss of strength or sometimes of self. We're talking about people who are vibrant and they're losing their sense of who they are, and that process is painful to watch. Loss of independence as you're increasingly needed as a caregiver might raise feelings of guilt, feelings of anger, feelings of resentment. These are normal and common, and be aware that it doesn't make you a bad person. It's normal to feel these things. The question is how you deal with it. Sharing what you're going through is often one of the best ways of healing. Find a support group, a therapist, a trusted friend, or write in a journal that no one will ever read. I think that's one of things that I recommend a lot to clients about many things. Putting your thoughts and feelings into words is a great way to start processing them. And if you write them down and no one has to ever see them, it's just helpful to you. Make sure you're attending to your own needs. Although your child and parent may need you, you're in a highly emotional situation and deserve to let yourself grieve as well. Feeling like a failure. It can be impossible to live up to your own standards when you have so much on your plate. As a sandwich generation caregiver, you might feel like you can't be the parent you want to be to your children or the caretaker you want to be to your parent. There's only so much you can do in a day, and perfection just isn't achievable. Try not to be too hard on yourself. Pay attention to avoid thinking in the extremes, and acknowledge that all that you have done. And here I bring up perfection versus satisficing. This is one of my favorite ideas in psychology. The idea is perfectionism leads to depression, anxiety, suicidality, and we see a lot of perfectionism. The key is to really understand realistic expectations. So someone came up with the term satisficing. Satisficing is what can be done given the circumstances. It combines two words, satisfy and suffice. I do what I can to satisfy the situation in a way that is sufficient, not lacking, but not overdone. This is an important mindset to have when we're set by many responsibilities and we cannot possibly achieve all to the best of our ability. Just so you know, they found that most CEOs who are really successful use a satisfying frame of mind rather than perfectionism. Also acknowledge that self-care is not selfish. Self-care helps you refill your resources so that you have more to give. So what are some types of self-care? A warm hot bath or a shower, listen to music, take a short vacation, take a walk or exercise routine, read a book or a magazine, be catered to, go to a restaurant. Anything that helps you feel rejuvenated and helps you de-stress will qualify as self-care. It's something that gives you the koach to continue giving. Outside help. Allow outside help, especially for things that are not mechubadik for children to do for parents. So there are things, certainly when it comes to personal hygiene, which parents really would not have wanted their children to do for them. In those cases, it is considered really more mechubadik to get an outsider, get an aide, get someone who's trained to do these things, whether it's coming to the home to do it or whether you have to go out to a facility, put the parent in a facility, I don't know. But it's good to get outsiders to do these things rather than you do it yourself, unless you're in a dire situation. When necessary, if parents will be better off in a facility, we need to do what is best for the parent and our families. Notice that does not absolve you from visiting the facility, for making sure that your parent is actually taken care of and being on top of the health. But sometimes it's not appropriate for the parent to be in your home, and there's no place better than a facility. It also depends on the level of deterioration that's going on and finances. So keep in mind, caretaking of parents has to happen. It's really not an option. How we view the responsibility, whether as burden or as chus, is up to us, and it frames the narrative for us and those around us. Have a Rav whom you can ask questions, because some of these are halachic questions, or some of them are moral questions, but it's good to have das Torah. Part of what we do when we continue working and raising our families is also honoring our parents. This is what our parents wanted for us. They wanted us to be successful parents and successful in our careers and other activities. Part of being successful parents is to be role models on how to honor our parents for our children. But another part of being successful parents is to raise children who are both physically and emotionally healthy, and we need to be there for them as well. We need to balance what we do it to the best of our ability, and not stress about perfection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You covered the whole sandwich generation from beginning to end, from young kids to middle-aged parents to older parents to people like me who are taking care of an older parent. I did it for my mother-in-law. I'm doing it now, Baruch Hashem, for my mother. Everybody's on board. I can't say enough that I have wonderful siblings who live close by and are willing to help. But I see from my friends who have siblings who are not so willing, and it falls on them. And yes, it's how we think about having the zechus of doing this that makes a whole difference. Our whole outlook, like you said, just is actually mirrored, and it reflects our inside, our hearts, the way we do it, and that automatically reflects on our household. So you said it in wonderful different opportunities for us to experience it, for our families to experience it, to let everybody else in the family experience it, whether
Right.
it's the 3-year-old or the bar mitzvah boy or any age, to see that there's something. I have a granddaughter who comes in once in a while to play piano. That's all she does. Bubby, I'm playing piano. You know, it's for me as much as it is for my mother, but she does it, and she does it with love, you know? So these kids, if they see it on you, you mirror it to them, and that's what you brought out. And I really think that the way we feel about it, any one of us who are have the zechus to have our parents live with us or take care of our parents while they're in their own home, and we're juggling back and forth, definitely the kids see it, that's for sure. And they do. Many, you know, you are right in the way you said that if you take a 3-year-old and show him that you're giving pills to Bubby or Zadie, and then they can understand what you're doing, because how are they going to understand it if you don't show them? Right. So you gave us many ideas to facilitate now for those of you who are looking for extra ideas. Or on the other hand, you keep in mind that if you go out for lunch and you rejuvenate your body a little bit, that lunch was worth everything. And I go into the city for a couple hours and I come back, I'm a different person. So it's the same thing. You have a shiur. I have a shiur once a week that I go when I'm on. All those little things, Dr. Walkenfeld, you're absolutely right. Every little thing that you do for yourself, and you have to remember to find time for yourself in order to go ahead and have the keiches to continue on in what you're doing. So I would like to open it up to if we have any questions. If not, I would like to ask, like, how do we how do we get, this was a question that somebody had proposed before. How do we get our husbands online to do this? And because it has to be together. If you don't do it with your spouse, or if the husband wants to do it and the wife isn't on board, then it's not going to be a working situation. So how can we deal with something like that?
That's a tough one. I think we have to, a lot of it also depends really on that original marital relationship and how they understand each other. But I think that certainly making, having the discussion, having the side that wants to take care, explain themselves. They have a number of discussions where they look at, well, what are the issues that are holding you back from doing this? Is there any way that we can work that out? Those are some initial things that need to be discussed. If you still aren't at odds, I would say you can consult Satisfatory, you can consult a Rav, you can consult a therapist. Again, depending on what the issues are. You have to look at also, what was the relationship with the in-laws beforehand? What was it? Was it a healthy relationship? Is it a relationship that's really going to make things much more difficult in the long run? Then there's something to be looked at. If it's going to kill the house in ways because the relationship wasn't good to begin with, then that really needs to be addressed as well. Okay.
One more question I have, and then I'm going to see if anybody else has any more questions. If the question was brought up that this woman was very upset with her sister who could not come and take care of her parent while she went away for a wedding to a relative on the other side. The sister gave, her usual reasons, but how can we present something to a sibling to show the importance that we need to get away for this simcha, and that whatever's happening in her house should not take precedence over taking care of a parent?
So I think the discussion has to be made that you are entitled. If you're the main caregiver and you're always there for your parents, your siblings need to, and there are siblings, there aren't always siblings, but if there are siblings, they need to understand that you are entitled to some self-care. They are not absolved of the mitzvah just because you're taking care. So those discussions have to be ongoing. This can't even just be a one-time thing. But I think, as I did put into the presentation, children who are living far away need to find the time to help their siblings who are the main caregivers to get some time alone and to get some time away, because there are younger children who are suffering because their parents are not available for them. And if they can give some relief to their siblings, then that's what they should do.
Easier said than done, but it's worth a try. And I think you're right. Today, where we can go on to a chat, or we could do Zoom, and we don't have to sit, in the same house to discuss this. It definitely, it's worth a try. I think also everybody has to be flexible. That was one point you brought out, is the flexibility, and the flexibility on both sides. On the person who's taking care and the person who's trying to get away for a couple days and needs the support of other people in the family. It does always fall on, as a rule, on one child. The most of it does fall on one of the children. But if you have the support system in place, it definitely makes it much easier to take care of, because you have that support system. And parenting with dignity was another topic you brought out, which was very interesting. I think that you really have to put some thought into that, the parenting with dignity, that you can't just think that they are there in your house, but you have to put them on almost on a pedestal to make sure that they still live dignified lives the way that they would have if they're in their own home, but unfortunately are not able to care for themselves. So we still have to give them that dignity. And then when the grandchildren come in, they see that. They see how the parent is dressed, and they see how they're taken care of, and they see that they're dressed, their clothing are clean and that they're dressed properly. They come in on Shabbos, they could see that the grandmother or grandfather above years 80 are dressed for Shabbos. So that dignity goes throughout, whether it's, it goes throughout the house and everybody sees it.
Yes.
So I think that you've covered quite a few points here, both for the parent involved and for the caretaker, which is very highly recommended, a lot of these things. And I still think that even if you get out for an hour, if you run out of the house for an hour, you come back, your head is refreshed. Your head, your heart, your hands, your everything. So I really think that you're right. I always say that a vacation, it depends on what you call a vacation. A vacation could be 2 days and a vacation can be 10 days. But if you call a vacation 2 days and it works for you, then do a 2-day vacation. So
I would even argue a vacation can take 2 hours if it means just that, right? You just go shopping anonymously, shut your phone, just take a walk. No one knows where you are and no one can reach you. That's the key.
Right. That's the key. That's the key. Exactly. Yes. A walk for an hour does miracles. So I want to, do we have any questions from any of our viewers? I don't see anything on my screen.
There is in the
There's
Q&A.
there's a bunch of questions in the Q&A chat. Have they all been answered?
I don't have it on mine. Let me see. Oh. Yes, they've all been answered. Right. If people want to contact you privately and speak to you privately, is there a way? How do they get in touch with you?
They can have my email address.
Okay. You wanna give it to me? You want to say it on the screen?
Can I post it in the chat? Will everyone see it?
Sure.
I have one question. I'm not sure it was asked yet. A parent or parents that are taking care of their parents and taking care of their children, and the child and the grandparents, the parents are going through a health crisis, a health issue. It's affecting obviously the family dynamic, and should this be communicated to the children's schools? Is there any need for intervention, or the children know what's going on? I don't know how much they understand, but they do know there's a health crisis. And do we include the teachers or any supportive staff at the children's school during this crisis?
I absolutely would, because the children are probably going through things. And if the parents, you're saying this is their immediate parents or grandparents that are affected?
I'm saying that the children and the grandparents are being cared for by the parents, and they know what's going on. They know their mother leaves 2:00 in the morning because there's some kind of crisis. The aide doesn't show up or something else happens, and it's affecting their,
If it's affecting their behavior and their learning ability, then that's a stressor that it would be helpful for the school to know, probably, because then the school would be more sensitive in dealing with the children. So yes, I would let them know, particularly if it's ongoing.
It doesn't look like the people's questions were answered. There are 5 questions here. Seema, do you see them?
How about this? I'll read some of these questions. You tell me if they're answered.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there an online support group for caregivers in Brooklyn? I am a spouse working full-time. Did the other person speak yet? That's the question. So yes, the other person spoke. I am not aware of a Jewish caregiver support group. Maybe somebody else could speak to that.
I'm not aware of an online support group. I think that's something I can try to look up, but I don't know of one. I would look up through Nefesh, because Nefesh, the organization for mental health professionals. There we might find out whether there's an online support group for caregivers.
Thank you. Here's another question. It seems the same person. Or how do we support our husband who was in his 20s dealing with
The sandwich
this sandwich issue? Or how to balance giving in-laws more energy of their health issues, which takes away from giving it to parents? This is a good question.
Yes. Well, I think in terms of supporting the husband,
Or support groups for young sandwichers. I'm not sure what that means, but so
I guess for young sandwiches, given that they're in their 20s, if I'm understanding this correctly, right? If they're in their 20s, that's a young sandwicher. They may not want to be in the same group as with people in their 50s and 60s. I'm not going to take offense at that, but I don't know, but it's a good question. In terms of how you can give support to your husband, really, different people take support in different ways, but I think just being there, listening, being sensitive, understanding that he may have difficult moods because of what's going on, allowing him a chance to open up if he wants to, because everyone can open up easily, but if he wants to, that's really how you can support him, being understanding. If there's anything that he wants more concrete, because sometimes people don't know what they want, if you find a way that you can help, like by finding him a support group and he wants to go, because not everyone wants to go, that would be helpful too.
all right, should we do one last call? Seema, should do one last call for questions? If there are any more questions?
Yes. One last call and then we'll wrap it up.
For me, can I ask you this one? I don't like the way my husband and his family deal with their parents. Can I, as the child-in-law, get involved?
So some family, it depends on family dynamics, I would say, because some families, don't allow the in-laws to speak, and other families welcome in-laws. I would say, if you're going to get involved, you need to really be involved. So if you're stepping in and you don't feel that you're not sure you're wanted, first check with your husband, see if he feels it'll be taken well. If he doesn't feel it'll be taken well, then no, don't. You're better off not. But if he does feel it'll be taken well, then yeah, it depends on the family dynamic.
Well, here's a great question somebody just put in the chat. It's so frustrating to watch my wife taking care of the responsibility of caring for her parents while their siblings come over to the house just to visit Zadie whenever it is convenient for them. Now, not only do we have to take care of our parents, we also have to accommodate all their visits, which interfere with our family life. They think they are helpers, but really it adds to the stress in an already stressful situation. How can I tell my wife and her family that the arrangements aren't working for our family? Well, before you answer, I think you have to have a conversation with your wife before you have a conversation with her family.
Yes, exactly. It just, like I said, with the in-law, giving her opinion, you have to first address it with your spouse, and then once you're on the same boat with your spouse, then you can move on to the rest of the family. So if your spouse sees that this is affecting the family plans and she agrees, I think you just have to say it. And I think people have to recognize that visiting is not helping to take care of. If you're coming to visit and you say, I'm coming for 3 hours and this is a time that you can go out and does it work for you? Meaning don't just come when it's good for you, but make sure it's good for the person you're going to give some relief to, then that is helpful. But if you're just coming when it's good for you and you're not really taking any responsibility for what else is going on, then that's not helpful. And I think it's okay to say that.
I think you could almost set up time and days, hours and days that you could say this is a good time for you to visit, and otherwise please don't come, because they have to understand that the caregiver has a a schedule to follow, even though they think that you're home a whole day and you have nothing to do. But there is some kind of a schedule in the house and you don't want to disrupt it for the sake of your children. So I agree with you. You have to set up a schedule and say, this is the time you can come. I'm leaving for 3 hours, come, or I need the hour today and come, but don't come between 8 and 9 at night, definitely. I agree with you with that.
Okay.
Okay. There was one more question I saw that just came on.
Yeah, my wife is such a kind and giving person, and now she's doing so much for her parents. I want to support her so that it isn't overwhelming her, but she doesn't seem to appreciate my ideas. What exactly is my role here? What are things that I should consider as I try to be supportive to her and understand her stress and constraints? It's tough because I think the role of the husband there is really, as I said earlier, to support, and to support means to listen and to kind of scaffold. Scaffold is not, it means that I give as much support as is needed. And sometimes men are very practical, and when they're giving support, that means they're giving ideas, and ideas don't always work for that particular family. Even though he's part of the family, but it's the other side. It may not work for them. And so you can't really get insulted. You kind of have to just understand that that may not be what they need from you right now. Your wife just may need you to listen and to be there for her and to listen to her complain and cry or whatever it is that she needs. It's also important for the wife to let her husband know that she appreciates him, that she appreciates his listening, and that if she's there, she needs to explain to him what her needs are, so that they have a mutual understanding of that relation, of their relationship and how they're functioning through this.
Okay. I think we can wrap it up here unless we see something else. So I want to thank you, Dr. Walkenfeld, for bringing up a lot of ideas, a lot of unanswered questions that people had, a lot of ways and ideas to implement everything. I want to thank Ellie Knobloch for his expertise between Medicaid and Medicare and all the different kinds of Medicaid that are available, the trusts and different ways of getting around it. And New York State is by far the best state to live in for an older person who is looking for different ways to assist him in living in dignity. I want to thank National Committee for hosting this and for our councilwoman for supporting National Committee with Operation Survival. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you all of you who participated.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you. Okay.